Welcome to our session on revolutionising member communications, engagement and governance through data analytics. I hope that you're in the right place and that you're excited as I am to participate in this session today. I also hope you've been enjoying your first ever tech conference in such a strange year. I guess it's a sort of tech enabled year, so I guess it's quite appropriate in a way. This session, we're going to focus on how our world has transformed and how that how an ability to track member progress throughout, towards, and through retirement has made these sort of opportunities for this greater throughout this period. And I guess also thinking about how capturing data through digital touchpoints enables us to analyse and turn it into action. So I'm really delighted to introduce Craig Monahan. Craig has been working at Standard Life since 2013, and he's had a sort of range of different roles across proposition. But in his current role, he and his team are responsible for sourcing market insight, and this informs strategy, development and management of the workplace proposition. And Craig really is just a sort of excellent speaker to have today, because he's going to walk us through all sorts of really interesting member tracking and how that can result in action. So all else that I need to say is to remember to tweet. Would be inappropriate to say anything else, wouldn't it, in a tech conference? So it's PLSA Tech 20, and also to use the Q&A box and the chat function. I see it's been really active in all of our conferences so far, so please do use it. And without further ado, I'll be quiet. And Craig, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alyshia. Hi, my name is Craig Monahan and I head up the workplace proposition team at Standard Life. So I'm delighted today to have the opportunity to talk to you about a recent development that we undertook with our technology partner TCS, which we believe has the potential to revolutionise member communications, engagement and governance. My role in the project was project sponsor, so I've been on a real journey here. So I've seen everything from initial designs on a whiteboard through to some client testing and really satisfactory to say through to delivery. So today I'm going to cover four things. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the application is and why we believe it's so important. I'm going to bring the application to life through a demo. Then I'm going to share some of the key insights and macro trends that we've seen from using the tool. And lastly, touch on some of the future development plans. Now, at this point, I'm really keen to get your views here. So Alyshia does have a poll that I think we're going to queue up and really hear your thoughts in shaping our future plans. Before any of that, I'm going to touch on the importance of data. So as a society, we're becoming more and more data hungry. We expect data to be there and really at our fingertips. So a daily example of this is probably exercise, where you're looking at things like speed that you've ran, the calories that you've burned, the distance that you've travelled, whether or not you've achieved your personal best. And I guess more high profile and recent example of this is the American election. So this served as a good example of how huge amounts of data can be aggregated up to give a holistic nationwide view, but also collapsible to provide more of an in-depth insight. So going by state, how far they are through the progression of that voting, town by town, previous voter turnout, previous winners, and demographic voter trends as well. And I guess what client analytics look to do at a high level is to do something very similar, but with pension data, and without some of the controversies. So to date, we've not had any protests or calls of fraud, and touch wood, hopefully that continues. Jim, if we could go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So client analytics, so what is it? It's a digital application that will empower employers and trustees to gain a greater understanding of the scheme dynamics. So it does this by aggregating member data, displaying the data in a simple to use dashboard, and applying a number of filters which allows more targeted and detailed analysis. And the net result of this provides data-driven insights to help better understand the profile and needs of members. So as mentioned earlier, we believe that this has the potential to revolutionise communications, engagement and governance, and I'll explain why. So historically, these types of actions were driven by a basic evaluation of singular data points. So over here, we're talking about a member's age or potentially their pension value. However, via client analytics, this This has given way to a far more sophisticated level of analysis based on a much wider range of data points. So now you'll be able to look at things like visual behaviour, gender, contribution amount, investment selection, and more importantly, layering of these data points on top of each other to paint a much more rich picture of what that looks like. The application also covers 12 months worth of data, which facilitates trend analysis, and now you're able to see real cause and effect of whether the campaigns that you've run have been effective in driving member action. Jim, if we could go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I thought it was only fitting that I describe a project which is based on facts and figures by talking through some key numbers. So I'll start with number 10. This is the number of months it took from initial concept and drawings on a whiteboard through to the rollout of the application, with the majority being delivered during a global pandemic. 20. This is the number of clients and advisors we spoke to as part of the development process. So this ranged from investment banks and fund managers through to high street retailers. Receiving that insight was essential as it really helped challenge what made the cut for our MVP solution, and what didn't make the cut, it forms part of a backlog that we're currently working through. 5 is the number of organisations who were involved in this delivery. So this is the point my project manager likes to frequently remind me of when I asked at the time why couldn't we move a bit faster. His point was, we're working. We're looking to create a collective prioritisation across different companies and different countries and different time zones as well. So a lot to juggle as part of that. 100. This is the number of user stories that were created and built as part of the MVP solution. So as you'll be aware, with any tech delivery, we're looking to balance quality and costs and speed to market. And initially, we were encouraged by our exec team to shorten the delivery time period, but that upfront scoping piece that we did with clients was really essential in protecting the development plans and scope that we had to make sure that we delivered a really credible solution. 1 million. This is the number of members whose data was uploaded to the application. So as with any data project, data protection is a fundamental part and core component of the delivery. Data protection office were involved at the start and throughout the whole process. And lastly, the biggest number that we can find, 360 million. So this is the number of individual data points that were uploaded into the application. I did ask the team whether they could have squeezed in another 40 million, so with a nice round number, but that did not go down well. So anyway, that's probably enough talking from me around what the application is. I'm just going to pass over to Jim now, who's going to cue up a short demo video to bring to life the functionality that we have. Jim, over to you.
Welcome to this short video, which will take you through some of the key features of our client analytics tool, which aims to provide self-serve, data-driven insights to inform decision-making. It does this by enabling you to quickly segment and analyse specific cohorts of the scheme's membership base. As an example, let's apply an age band filter. We can see here that around 8,000 members have an average pension pot size of £20,000. Let's take a look at members who are at an earlier financial life stage, let's say aged up to 50. The user can select the relevant age groups here and click Apply. The updated results show that this cohort of members accounts for around 80% of total members. They have a lower average pension pot value at £18,000, and what we can also see is that their total assets have increased by 12% over the past year. Let's now move on to the members page. The information presented here is at a more granular level, and the first chart shows proportion of members within each asset size band across a rolling 12-month period. It also shows a current month snapshot. Notice here that a benchmark is shown, enabling the user to compare and contrast their specific scheme against a selection of our corporate pension clients, representing a broad selection of industries and employee profiles. We then have a similar chart format, but this time for regular premium banding. And then a chart to show a proportion of members in each age band, split by gender. And finally on the members page is the customer segmentation chart. We have modelled each member into one of 14 segments based on their affluence and financial life stage. And this chart shows the proportion of members in each of those segments compared to the benchmark. A link to the description of each segment is included on the I button, which you can see here. I'll move to the engagement page now, which aims to provide insights on member behaviours around how they interact with their workplace pension. The mobile app chart shows proportion of members who have logged in compared to the benchmark and a rolling average. Here we see an average of 12% of members log in each month, which is broadly in line with the benchmark. If we apply a filter for younger members, let's look at members aged up to 40, click apply, we see that that number increases to 21%, suggesting younger members, in this example, are more digitally engaged. Scrolling down, we have two donut charts. The first shows percentage of members signed up to paperless communications, which of course means the member can be contacted digitally to deliver important messaging. The second donut provides a view on members who have nominated a beneficiary. We think nominating a beneficiary fits into the overall financial wellness of members, and in this example, we see the proportion of members is quite low, so a potential messaging opportunity exists to drive engagement in this area. We have included a feedback page and hope to gather valuable information through this to help shape future development of the tool.
Okay, so I don't mind sharing that during lockdown, I have watched a number of films, and the lines between client analytics and films started to blur. So much so that I was going to cover this section, talking about key trends that we derive from the tool, by making a number of analytics/movie references via the slides. But our compliance team had some brand concerns, so I could have been here talking about Inside Out instead of Inside Out, the Disney Pixar film, or American Pie charts, 5-year engagement stats, derivative, I think you see ongoing. Friends with benefits could have been friends with beneficiaries, especially if the comms were effective. And lastly, saving Private Ryan's details in the GDPR compliant fashion. So, lots of angles that could have taken, but fortunately, compliance has steered me in another direction. So instead, we're opting for a safer, more traditional approach. So we have a broad range of clients and sectors, and there will be individual employer nuances. But what I'm going to talk through now is some of the key, the broad macro trends that we're seeing on the back of this. So let's start with gender. So on average, the pension gap is roughly 40% between men and women, and that men's pension costs tend to be 40% larger. So this becomes more pronounced when we look at individuals over 50. So there's a number of reasons for this, everything from earnings to working patterns and investment selection. But conscious you can have a separate session on this. For those who are interested, I have previously written a blog around this with lots of data points to back up my arguments, which you can find on the Standard Life website. It would be lovely for someone other than my mum or my immediate team to have read through it, so do seek it out if you are so inclined. Digital. So there's a perception nowadays that millennials and Gen Z are digital natives, and that may very well be true, but it's not been borne out with the data. So our analysis indicates that there's a stronger link between wealth and digital rather than age and digital. And lastly, kind of really top slicing here on wealth, but our data indicates that when a pension pot reaches £100,000, that's where you fundamentally start to see a noticeable difference in all the metrics in regard to pension. So everything from digital engagement with our dashboard, engagement with our mobile app, updates to NRD and beneficiary, it's almost like you're looking at a completely different profile of customers. Now, I do appreciate that that's a very small subset in the nature of the client, but that tends to be the magic number where we start to see a lot of those engagement dials increase. So these are the broad strokes trends that we're seeing. In terms of how this will be used with clients, we do have our relationship management team who work with the client along with the marketing manager that we have to look at individual circumstances and what action they should take. Jim, if I can ask you to move on to the next and final slide. So future developments. So we've come a long way with this application in a short space of time. And I'm keen to hear your thoughts on how we can advance it going forward. So Alyshia, I think you're going to put up a poll following this slide. So the future development we've got can broadly be categorized into two areas: broadening and deepening. So with that we mean things like providing third-party access to advisors and EBCs, talking about extending the client reach that we have in there as well. In terms of the depth that we're looking to do, so we're looking to have an increased focus on member outcomes, so looking at members' behaviour and drawdown, and to incorporate the PLSA retirement living standards. I do hasten to add that this isn't just because this is a PLSA sponsored event. Obviously, there is legitimate demand for this, so this is a key aspect we're looking to incorporate going forward. Integration of campaigns, so making that more of a kind of seamless journey between wanting to take action and having materials to support that. Enhanced benchmarking, so looking at sector and geographic specific levels of comparison, just increasing the relevance of the cohort that you're comparing to. A number of user experience improvements, including print to PDF and saving the paper charts, so where there's a multitude of data in there, and surfacing it and sharing it with the relevant individuals in the organisation is really important. And lastly, just adding in the additional data points that happen, things like policy start date and years to retirement. Alyshia, that's everything I had. So I'm going to pass over to you at this point to run the poll, and I'll be around for any questions that we have.
Thank you, Craig. So I think we have an audience poll, if we may. So I'm going to read this out for the benefit of those watching this on demand. It's like being an ITV host. They do this, don't they? So I'm going to read it out. Which of the developments listed below would have the greatest impact? So you have the following options: member outcomes focused, e.g. incorporating PLSA retirement targets, UX improvements, e.g. save my favourites, print to PDF, integration of campaigns, for example, links through to digital or paper-based comms, enhanced benchmarking, for example, industry or geographic region, extend the client reach, make this available to all active clients, third-party access, which the example given includes advisor EBC access, and or additional data points, which the examples given are date joined or salary. So please vote away. The vote should be open now for you. Thank you very much. So I've got the results. So again, in ITV style, I'm going to read them out for you. So the answer, the sort of overwhelming majority, is the member outcomes focused area. So maybe we'll pick this up in a second, Craig. Incorporating retirement income standards, it appears. And then following that, we've got a couple of favourites too. So we've got additional data points, gets 19%. We've got extending client reach and integration of campaigns. Oh, and also UX improvements all get 10%. And then unfortunately, enhanced benchmarking and third-party access get no votes. So thank you everybody for voting. Craig, I wonder if you might just immediately pick up on that member outcomes focused development. What do you think about that? Do you think that would have the greatest impact? Were you expecting that answer?
Fantastic, great to get these kind of different views. Yeah, I actually had set quite a lot of stock in the enhanced benchmarking, so this is good food for thought for me. I completely agree with the member outcomes, though. I think when I saw some of the development plans that we had, I felt that would be one that would really jump out. I think it gives a lot of relevance to, especially with the increased focus on what pension freedoms has allowed, and having that oversight and management is that, yeah, absolutely fundamental. So I can definitely see why that we want to pursue that, and I'll make sure this gets fed into our development.
Thank you. So I've just got a couple of questions through, both from the audience, and yeah, so I've got a couple here. So one about data protection. So how do you ensure that data protection is still maintained through the client analytics platform? I think you mentioned this earlier, but maybe just worth picking up again exactly how that works. And a sort of secondary question is coming through on the chat is how do we sort of get access to this? I think someone's saying, I've never seen anything like this before. How do I do it? So yeah, if you could pick those both up at the same time, that'd be cracking.
Okay, let me pick up I have a terrible memory, so I'm just going to write this down. So we've got the data protection question, and then we've got the access question as well. Okay, data protection, yes, so fundamental aspects to how we develop the proposition involved right at the outset. So we looked at this in a number of different ways, and I think what was maybe different to how we certainly in Standard Life approach certain other projects is data protection were formed really at the outset, and they felt that this was part of their project as well, rather than just an SME who engaged as part of the process. So we opted probably for the most stringent controls within there. So all personally identifiable data is removed before transit, and from a master trust and own trust perspective as well, we engaged with the relevant trustees in their data. So that was undertaken prior to transmit. So lots of different options, but we went for the kind of one that offered members afforded them the highest level protection. And the access point of view, I'm happy to pick up that question. It probably depends on, I'm assuming, is it a client or an advisor or EBC? If it's a competitor, I'm going to say, sorry, we won't be able to give them access to that tool. But assuming you're an existing client, please let me know, and I'll pick up with the relevant relationship manager to make sure you have access. This has just gone live as of September, so it is very much a very recent development rather than something that's been in the table for a long time.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, I should have mentioned you'll be on the stand after this session, because I'm just conscious of time already. We're already running out of time, but you will be on the stand after this session to answer other questions. I think one of the questions that might be interesting to pick up there is about how the sort of data and insights on the platform can be connected with communications with employers, because I think that's one of the sort of key focuses, I guess, of the result. So unless you can give us sort of 1 minute answer to that question, I'll give you a go.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so we've got a range of off-the-shelf kind of free-to-use material to engage. So everything from pay more to consolidation through things like pension scams, mobile engagement, NRD, updates and beneficiaries. So there's a whole host of material that is there and it can be deployed. And I think what this gives you is a real targeted who do you want to communicate with, and then the means to actually go about and communicate with that audience.
Thank you so much. Sorry to ask you that question. No time at all. We have indeed run out of time, but I just would like to say that thank you, Craig, because you will be on the stand after this, and that's been an incredible introduction into your work. So thank you so much. And I can sort of hear the virtual round of applause ringing in the virtual room, I guess, would be the way to thank you. So thank you so much from me and from the rest of the audience. Thank you for being such an engaged audience. Do remember to rate the session, and you can do that in the auditorium part of the platform. And this session will be online for a month. So if you missed anything or if you want to watch that video again, please do.